Hey, it's Drybear. And if you're like me and you love playing MMOs, then today we have a treat for you because we're gonna ask and answer a simple question. Should you be excited for the newly upcoming Throne and Liberty MMO? Now, whether you've heard of this MMO before or you're just hearing about it for the first time, we'll go through everything there is to know about the game and show you some gameplay and trailer footage and talk about what to expect for this upcoming release. If you found value in the video, leave a like down below. It helps me out tremendously. Subscribe for more gaming content. And as always, if you have any questions or comments for me, you'll find me live every single day on twitch.tv/Drybear. Come by and say hello. All right, let's get started because we have a lot to talk about when it comes to Throne and Liberty. There's going to be some concerns that people have based on publishing and based on development. But let's first talk about the game because the game does look really cool. It is a fantasy-based MMO. It is something that is more of an open class system. So they've mentioned in their devlogs that they want to have this to be more flexible. And so most of the abilities that you're going to be using will come from the weapon you have equipped. So you can kind of think of this as similar to being like the Elder Scrolls Online approach or the New World approach or even Albion Online that did this as well. That kind of idea where based on the weapons you choose to equip kind of customizes your own class. So that idea is already kind of just sets it in stone as one of those MMOs that people are going to just love for that aspect alone. Beyond that, they have some pretty ambitious goals with this. Now, looking at this, it is developed by NC Soft, and we'll talk about what that means a little bit in a little bit when we get over the gameplay itself. But keep in mind that this was originally, now that they're marketing this as having been made on Unreal 5. They started development on Unreal 4, and having been a developer that has worked a long time on Unreal 3, sometime on Unreal 4 and Unity, and then going from games from Unreal 3 to Unreal 4, there's definitely going to be some aspects that allow them to move there. But they are touting this as a UE5 game that is kind of like current gen, and it's based off some of the tech work they've done for Guild Wars. But one of the more ambitious aspects of this game, as you can see by the gameplay on screen, is they want this to be what old school MMOs were all about, which is a persistent, continuous world without sharding, without phasing, and without loading zones. Now, having worked as a game developer, I can tell you that is ambitious, and yeah, to promise that is pretty insane because there's a reason why as games got bigger and more popular and had more players that we started moving to this phasing, sharding, loading system because performance is a big question, right? If you have 300 people on screen attacking a world boss or engaging in some big event and everyone starts lagging and turns into an actual like PDF file paging through a PowerPoint presentation, then it kind of ruins the gameplay experience. But based on their design for the game, the mechanics they've talked about in their developer commentary, it is kind of core of what they want the experience to be. So not only is it going to be, supposedly, we'll see if this actually comes out the way it is, but they're saying that it's one continuous world without load screens. It is going to be one shard, one phase, one everything. Everyone is in the same spot, in the same place, seeing each other. Especially with graphics like this, I think the game looks great. It looks very modern. It looks very cool. And if that's the case, where you can always see people, I think this does address a concern that people have for modern day MMOs, and that new expansion comes out or new MMO comes out and you go out questing, you go out fighting mobs and you don't see anyone. And that's because there's 37 channels or shards or phases of the current area that you're in. And even if there's 300 people there, you don't really see them because it's all scattered. So at some point, I mean, even if this game becomes super popular, they'll have to do something to limit how single spaces are used. We don't want to repeat the launch of Encourage in WoW, where everyone showed up to one spot at one point and all the servers died for a day because it just broke. But that's what they're looking for. So at least you can see what they're trying to accomplish. And if you do look at the earlier footage, previews of the game, versus the ones they're showing us now, it does seem like they've made some pretty big strides in performance. And they've even mentioned that in their devlog, saying that they are working really hard on making performance the best that it can be. And we'll just have to, hold our breath and see if they can actually pull it off. On top of that, They want to make that experience as part of the overall dungeon diving experience. So what they've talked about is a dungeon experience is going to be more like old school EverQuest, which was super cool for the time, and not really many people have messed with it too much. But what that means is that a dungeon is an open space. It's not a linear instance that 5 people go into. It's a dungeon. You go in, and if you're there, everyone else is there. And what they want to do is they want to have it have very, very long pathways, but also lots of verticality and depth. So that means that you can, there's multiple floors. You can go down a couple floors, and that kind of helps separate the groups. But you can be invaded. You can be attacked by people that are looking for the loot you're in. You're dealing with more and more monsters as you go lower. And then the abilities in the game allow you to interact with that cool verticality and create this interesting space. So that lends itself better if they do develop good tech for getting a lot of people in one place at one time and it doesn't suck, then that makes the dungeons kind of cool. This is an encounter you're seeing on screen at the end of a dungeon where you have this encounter space, but this is the dungeon I'm talking about where you have mobs and you have people that come in and you can fight them off or not. They did say that they want the PvP in open areas to be, for the most part, flagged. And I think that it's impossible to have a modern MMO that doesn't have flagged PvP. I don't think you can have a successful MMO if you only limit it to people that want to PvP. Now, they have mentioned that there will be events and time periods where that PvP is open, but it'll be announced, which means that you might be in a zone and then it says like, hey, in 10 minutes, the zone is going to turn into a blood battle war of everyone attacking each other. Everyone gets flagged. If you don't want to be part of it, you got 10 minutes to get out, finish your business, finish your quest, zone out, and then come back later if you don't want. But there's going to be like these active war zones that pop up, and they want it to be like an inclusive thing for a time limit, and then have that come down and then go back to the opt-in PvP that everyone is used to. On the topic of mounts, they have a unique mechanic that you can see on screen, and that is basically everyone in the game is an Animorph. So you have the ability to transform into these mystic aspects, either a bird or a dragon or a hippogriff or something, and that's how they replace their flying mounts and ground mounts. So it adds to the really fun verticality. They've also shown and talked about how there will be grapple points where you can climb up and down verticality. You can transform into these animals to traverse the space, and that all lends itself into this open world aspect. And they've also put a big emphasis on verticality as well, as being able to scale up and down, set up ambushes if it's in PvP, if it's in PvE, be able to use the verticality against the enemies. You can see a clip here where they'll jump off and transform and then use that to glide down, and obviously as a way for them to use personalization as well as you develop those core aspects for the character. They also do want some really interesting and ambitious weather systems in the game. This is super unique as well. So what they want is to, again, further enable this open world space, persistent world space. They want the spaces that you're, like the zones you're going through, to be ever changing. And they have talked about and shown a lot of details of weather systems. So for example, certain enemies may only appear when the sun is out, or certain dungeons may only be available when moonlight hits them, or stars that fall down may affect battle. They've even talked about how they want rain to be able to fill up the basins and cause some areas to be impassable or cause you to have to swim through them. So they've shown plenty of footage of that system, like affecting where things are. So they want you out in the world, seeing people, interacting with people constantly, and then having these weather systems that affect how you do things. But that's not all. They've also hinted, and they haven't given too many concrete details about this, they've hinted that abilities and combat may change with the weather systems as well. So for example, they mentioned that they were working on things like having projectiles and movement speed affected by rain. So if you're in the rain, maybe archers a little less effective, or ballistas, or magic bolts, things like that. They've also mentioned that during thunderstorms, this is the footage of the water filling up when it rains. During thunderstorms, they've mentioned that lightning magic may be enhanced. When in scorching hot days, fire magic may be enhanced. And they've showed clips of a wizard using lightning magic and it hits a target. And then if it's during a thunderstorm, the lightning magic will hit the target and then chain lightning to multiple targets and become an AoE spell. So having that be part of the gameplay is that you're in these open world areas and you're moving around and things are always changing. They might have it here. Yes, so that's the footage right there. So the lightning goes out, and then during a thunderstorm, the lightning effect becomes stronger. Some things may be able to affect the rain themselves overall, but that's a really ambitious and kind of unique and fun way to do the game. Now, obviously, this brings out a bunch of questions around performance. For one, is all of this stuff can definitely impact performance if it's not done well, especially in a modern engine with graphics like these and a lot of players, but also a question of balance as well. I think if you look at the examples like Elder Scrolls, New World, and Albion Online, there's plenty of MMOs that have the build your own class. Rift even had, I would argue, a more confined version of this system for classes where you can pick your own build because you're combining classes together. But even then, there's a question of balance. Is a certain combination of weapons going to become the most powerful or the most viable, or will it limit expression because certain things will be limited by that? So there's just definitely some questions around that. But this is a good time to jump into the publisher developer aspect of this, because it's something that is going to be a big topic for a lot of players. And the first thing is that it is developed by NCSoft, so Guild Wars, Lineage, and there's a question of whether or not there will be pay to win, pay to progress, pay for convenience options in the game. Will this affect the overall? We know that there's definitely those aspects in Korea where this is originally developed. And the publisher for this is going to be Amazon Game Studios, so the developers of New World. And they've also got a good amount of experience now publishing Lost Ark, another Korean game, into the Western audience. So it could be that whatever systems for monetization exist for Throne and Liberty are modified by AGS going into the Western release. And I think in general, I think that there is a threshold of a healthy amount of buy options that help the studio pay their bills and make more content and make the game good. And then when you cross over that threshold, it limits gameplay, it requires payment, those sorts of things. So there's definitely more that we need to know around monetization scheme, how it's going to affect the player and the gameplay and what they intend to do. But just know that as we get more details from NCSoft and for the Korean version of the game, that there still could be changes and modifications when Amazon publishes it for us in the West. And that's what I've got on Throne and Liberty. I think the game looks great. The concept is really cool. I always love it when developers do new and fresh takes on things that are original, and just try to accomplish something new and shock and awe us players with what they do, even if some are a risk, some aren't. Just in general, I think it looks pretty cool. And I'm pretty excited about it. So I would say, should you be excited about Throne and Liberty? Yes, you absolutely should. The game looks great. It's got a good amount of funding and backing, and it could end up being one of the best releases. Now, release time, they've mentioned that it's going to be 2023. So we know it's this year. Typically, since we're at the end of Q1 now, we're moving into the spring, and they say 2023. That almost always means fall or winter, but they could surprise us with a summer release. But just know that later on this calendar year, we're expecting Throne Liberty, which means we could be soon in the next 3 to 4 months, start seeing some beta processes, alpha logins, things like that allow us to test the game out and get more details on it. So stay tuned for more updates as we get them for Throne and Liberty. But if you're an MMO fan, I want to make sure that this game is on your radar and you're getting ready to see how it does. This could end up being one of the best ones that we have seen in a while. You let me know what you think in the comments down below. Are you excited about this? Are you concerned about this? Are you hyped about this? Are you not this isn't something you're looking forward to? Let me know. I'll be sure to answer as many comments as I can down below. And of course, if you found value in the video, leave a like down below. It helps me out tremendously. Subscribe for more gaming content. And as always, just come by my live stream. If you haven't already, what are you doing? If you enjoyed yourself today, leave a like down below. You can support me and my work on Patreon and view Patreon exclusive content, link in the description. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next one.